Here's something striking. Revolutionary authoritarian regimes, they're apparently 3 times more likely to stick around than other kinds of autocracies.
Yeah, it's quite a statistic, isn't it? Comes from Stephen Levitsky and Lucan Way's work, Revolution and Dictatorship.
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today. Why these regimes, born out of often violent upheaval, have this surprising staying power.
It seems counterintuitive at first glance.
It really does. And speaking of digging into complex ideas, if you're looking for more quick insights into big books like this one, you might want to check out Mindful Moments over on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
It's a channel using AI for book analysis. Pretty neat for sparking reflection, kind of like we hope to do here.
Interesting.
So our aim today is really to unpack the reasons behind this resilience. Let's start with the basics. What exactly counts as a revolutionary regime in their view?
Okay. Levitsky and Way lay out 4 key things. First, these regimes have to come from below, think broad social movements, not just a coup from within the existing system.
Right, not just swapping elites.
Exactly. Second, it involves the old state actually collapsing and huge numbers of people getting mobilized. Third, they push for really radical social change, the kind that directly threatens powerful groups.
Okay.
And fourth, crucially, they build completely new political structures and, importantly, new ways to enforce their rule. New armies, new police forces.
So who fits that bill? Examples?
Well, the classic ones are Russia after 1917, China, certainly Mexico post-revolution, Cuba, Iran after 79, and Vietnam.
And a key point they make is that these regimes always end up authoritarian.
Yes, that's their argument. The sheer scale of the transformation they're attempting, overturning established interests, it practically requires coercion that just isn't compatible with liberal democracy.
Right, the goals themselves push them in that direction. So what's the theory? Why the durability?
It centers on this sort of reactive sequence. You have the revolution seizing power, then this early phase of radical policies and building up an army, and then comes the critical part. Counter-revolutionary conflict.
Conflict, which sounds like it should weaken them.
You'd think so. But paradoxically, Levitsky and Way argue this conflict is what forges the pillars of their durability.
Okay, intrigue building. What are these pillars?
3 main things. 1, a really cohesive ruling group bound together by the struggle. 2, strong, deeply loyal security, forces the military, secret police, you name it. And 3, the systematic destruction or neutralization of any independent power bases in society. Think churches, big landowners, independent businesses, even civil society groups.
Got it. So the fight itself helps build the tools to stay in power.
Precisely. It leads to this durable authoritarianism, and they note 2 main pathways to this. A Western one, where the big fight happens after they take national power, like Russia or Cuba.
Okay.
And an Eastern path, like China or Vietnam, where much of the intense conflict happens before they achieve full national victory. But both routes end up producing remarkably resilient regimes.
Where does ideology fit into this, especially in those chaotic early days?
Oh, it's absolutely central. The ideology provides the moral justification for why they're doing these radical things. It helps identify who the enemies are, who needs to be overcome.
Right, it frames the struggle.
And it gives them a kind of blueprint for building those new institutions. Now, that early radicalism, seizing assets, totally reorganizing society, maybe thumbing their nose at international powers, it definitely creates enemies, loads of them.
Naturally.
But for the regimes that manage to survive that initial storm, those very actions, that radicalism, actually ends up strengthening their foundations in the long run.
It's like extreme pressure forcing them to solidify. The pushback makes them tougher if they don't break.
That's a great analogy. The counter-revolutionary conflict acts like a brutal crucible. It forces the revolutionary leaders to stick together, us versus them. Shared struggle really bonds people.
Creates intense unity.
Yes, and intense polarization in society, which helps them consolidate control. It also makes building those loyal security forces an absolute top priority. Their survival literally depends on it.
No room for disloyalty there.
None. And crucially, the conflict provides the perfect justification and the means to just wipe out any potential rivals, those alternative power centers we talked about. It's fascinating how opposition can inadvertently make a regime stronger.
That really is counterintuitive. But surely not all revolutions follow this path to durable authoritarianism. Some must fail.
Absolutely. And studying those failures helps prove the point. They talk about a radical path to early death. This is where the regime is just so extremely radical right from the start that it provokes overwhelming opposition before it can build those strong foundations.
These examples.
Think of the very short-lived Hungarian Soviet Republic in 1919, or More recently, maybe the Khmer Rouge or the Taliban in their first go-around in the late 90s. Their radicalism was just too much, too soon.
They burned too bright, too fast.
Exactly. Then there's the opposite, what they call the accommodation path. Here, regimes deliberately tone down their radical goals early on, trying to avoid that intense conflict.
Like Algeria, maybe?
Yeah.
Or Guinea-Bissau?
Those are examples they use, yes. But the result is, while they might avoid immediate collapse, they also don't build those really strong, cohesive structures. Their foundations are weaker, making them less durable in the long term.
So, the survivors, the Soviet Union, China, Vietnam, Cuba, Iran, they managed that balancing act. Radical enough to transform, resilient enough to withstand the backlash and build those pillars.
That's the core idea. Take the Soviets. The Russian Civil War was absolutely vicious, but it was essential in forging that Bolshevik elite unity and creating the Cheka, the Red Army, this powerful security state. Or China, their decades-long struggle before 1949 against the Japanese, against the nationalists that built incredible party discipline and military loyalty. They were already hardened.
Right. The state was forged in war before it even formally ruled the whole country.
And Vietnam, similar story. Those long, grinding wars against the French, then the Americans that fostered incredible elite cohesion and state capacity just to survive. The conflict itself built the strength.
These are really clear illustrations of the theory in action. So if we boil it down, what are the absolute key takeaways from Levitsky and Way's research?
Okay, number one, revolutionary regimes are just built different, significantly more durable. Number two, that counterintuitive point violent opposition often ends up strengthening the regimes that survive it.
Yeah.
Three, those pillars, cohesive elites, loyal guns, and no real opposition centers are the magic formula for resisting breakdown. Four, it's not primarily about economics driving this durability, which is interesting.
That is interesting. Usually we hear economics explains everything.
Not here, not primarily.
Yeah.
And finally, number five, where a regime comes from, its revolutionary origins, casts a really long shadow on its future stability.
This definitely gives us a lens to look at the world today, doesn't it?
For sure. It helps explain the resilience of places like China, Cuba, Iran, even now. It also highlights why democratic transitions in such states are often so incredibly difficult. Those deep structures are hard to dismantle. And it suggests, maybe worryingly, that even if new revolutions break out amidst all the chaos, there is still potential for very durable authoritarian regimes to emerge, again, possibly strengthened by the very conflict they endure.
Okay, so for someone listening, if they want a quick mental checklist to assess how durable an authoritarian regime might be based on this, what should they look for?
Levitsky and Way give us a good framework. 5 key things to ask. 1, did it actually come from a violent social revolution? Origins matter.
Right.
2, how unified is the ruling group? Do they seem bound by that shared struggle, that ideology? 3, how strong and loyal are the army, the police, the security services?
Aggressive capacity.
Exactly. 4, how effectively have they crushed or controlled independent groups in society, media, business, religion, unions?
Civil society control.
And 5, was there significant counter-revolutionary conflict early on? That founding sequence seems critical. Looking at those factors gives you a pretty good sense, according to their research.
It's sobering to think about the sheer historical weight of these regimes. They didn't just last, they profoundly changed the 20th and 21st century.
Oh, undeniably. The Soviet Union's industrialization, its role in defeating Nazism, huge impact. China's rise now as a global giant is reshaping everything. Cuba, even as a small island, became this global symbol of resistance for decades. Iran establishing this unique modern theocracy has massive regional influence.
It's true.
But it's absolutely crucial we also remember the dark side. The horrific human cost, the Holodomor in Ukraine, China's great leap forward, the Cambodian genocide under the Khmer Rouge. These are inseparable parts of that revolutionary story, too. We need that balanced perspective.
Definitely. You touched on some specific case studies earlier that really drove the points home. Could you maybe quickly recap the most illuminating ones?
Sure. The Soviet Union under Stalin is maybe the starkest example of that transformation, from a shaky revolutionary start through the crucible of civil war to this incredibly durable, if brutal, totalitarian state. The conflict built the foundations. China, again, that pre-1949 struggle is key to understanding its later resilience. The party and army were hardened long before taking national power.
Right.
Contrast that with Hungary in 1919, extreme radicalism, but no time to build those foundations, leading to quick collapse. It shows what happens when one element outpaces the others.
The imbalance is fatal.
Exactly. And Vietnam stands out for its resilience through multiple conflicts. Each wave seemed to reinforce that elite unity and state strength. It's a powerful case study.
It really is. And, if digging into these kinds of analyses is something you find valuable, it's worth mentioning Mindful Moments again, and of course our other discussions here where we try to unpack complex global issues.
Definitely worth exploring if these topics grab you.
So, wrapping this up and maybe leaving us with something to chew on, considering everything we've discussed, what does this all mean for the future of these revolutionary states, especially now, in a world that's so interconnected, so saturated with information? How does that change the game, if at all?
That is the big question, isn't it? A really potent thought to carry away from this.
Indeed. And for you listening, if this conversation sparked some thoughts, please do subscribe to catch future discussions. Share this with anyone you think might find it interesting.
And check out the links if you want to go deeper into Levitsky and Way's original research or related materials.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And most importantly, keep thinking critically about the forces, often surprising ones, that shape the world around us.